Happy Friday, Straton Pet Talk. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5 Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, I answer 5 questions from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, expatinCroatia.com, email my consulting sessions, Cam's consulting sessions, and people who sneak them into flashcards. So I have 5 great questions for you today, including our lawyer tip of the week. Before we get started, let me tell you about what I've been doing the past couple of weeks because I have been on vacation. We did not have an episode of 5 Question Friday last Friday. I just needed a little bit of Sarah time. I think we can all relate, right? So what have I been doing the last couple of weeks? I've gone to the beach a few times because it has been summer weather. I mean, it's not today. Down here in Dalmatia the last couple of days, we've had some crazy bora. It's late. It was supposed to happen in March. Mother Nature really dropped the ball this year on that. But that's okay because we had a few summer days that were so super hot. We had one day that was 27 in the shade, which means it was 78 in the sun. That is real feel, guys, real feel. So yeah, I got a tan. So I feel like I'm ready to go into summer now. Actually, just before I hopped on the gram, I just started putting the last of my winter clothes in my shupa. A shupa is like a little storage unit that you get in some of these buildings that were built in the 60s and the 70s. So all my sweaters and all my coats are now away. So the weather better stay consistent because I am no longer prepared for winter. But, look, if I can go to the beach for 3 days in a row, then I say that winter is over. That's how I feel about it. What about you? What else did I do? I went up to Zadar, and then I quickly came back from Zadar because my friend that I was staying with got the flu or something corona-like, and so I just hightailed it out of there. But, it was a lovely drive up the coast and back down the coast. I did some gardening. So I have a little garden space in front of my apartment. I don't technically own it. It's part of the building. But it's kind of like an understood thing that I am to take care of this garden. And so I've been shamed a little bit by the building manager in my building for not taking care of it. I like the wild look. I mean, yes, partially I'm lazy and I'm not good at gardening, but also I kind of like it all wild. That's just me. But my building is not in agreement. And if I want to risk having my fence taken down and then it just being owned by the city, then I have to make it look nice. So I was out there on one of these really beautiful days that we had and tore a bunch of stuff up and planted some things and things I hope that I won't kill because I am not good at gardening. I'm not good at it at all. I feel very insecure when I see all these Baba gardens all over my neighborhood. So it's just very common to kind of take unofficial ownership of the terrace and the garden that's right in front of the apartments for the people who have private entrances, who are on the ground floor. And they just do such beautiful things, but I'm not good at that. But I'm going to try. This is me trying. So I planted a grapevine, Malvasia, which is a grape that's native to Istria. This is not Istria. I planted a raspberry bush, which looks like it's finally starting to sprout, and a blackberry bush, which the future of that remains to be seen. It still just looks like a big stick that I buried in the ground. So we'll see about that. What else did I do? Tons of reading. That was really enjoyable. Did lots of walking around town, lots of cafe bar hopping in Split, which is one of my most favorite things to do ever. And that's it. Oh, and my favorite ice cream place reopened. So if you have been to Split or are coming to Split, Emiliana Romana is the best gelato place in Split, hands down. And they were so successful that they opened up a new location around the corner from their existing location. I'm wondering why, because there was an ice cream, well, I guess it still technically exists. But Luca was the hottest thing since sliced bread when they opened. I don't know how many years ago it was now, but a long time ago. And they were great. They had huge lines. The president, Kalinda, actually went there, and their ice cream was really good. And then they were so successful that they opened up a new location across from their existing location, and that did not prove to be a great decision. And then they had to cut costs, and then the quality declined, and everyone stopped going there, and now I think it's being sold. So I really hope that same fate does not befall Emiliana. But they are excellent. They're really excellent. Everything they have is great. I highly recommend it. Even during the summer when they have a line of 40 people, it is worth the wait. Okay, ice cream diatribe over. There's one more thing we need to talk about today. So we just posted a video where we talked about the digital nomad loophole being closed. And I just want to quickly address this. Yes, I'm going to briefly repeat what's in the video just to set some context, but I want to explain why this is happening. So essentially, digital nomads up until this point, there's this big kind of gaping loophole in the law on foreigners. And essentially, if you are a digital nomad, you can switch to other purposes, which a good example of that would be prepayment of rent and back and forth to digital nomad permit, back and forth. Without any limitations. You can do that without waiting 6 months in between applications. Another kind of loophole is that a digital nomad, if they have a spouse, the spouse can change the digital nomad can change to be the spouse, and that allows them to go back and forth, again, without waiting 6 months in between applications. That is most likely going to be shut down. So that means if you are on digital nomad, you cannot switch to other purposes. You cannot switch to family reunification based on digital nomad, and vice versa. Why are they doing this? Because the spirit of the digital nomad permit is that you come here for a year, you enjoy Croatia, you spend a lot of money, and then you leave because you are nomadic. That's why you get a tax exemption. But people are navigating the system in a way, and I will take full responsibility. We have guided many people on our consulting sessions to take advantage of this opportunity. We've never published it publicly, but we have guided people in our consulting sessions because it is a method that you can use to stay in Croatia long term. Well, Croatia has picked up on that. So that is why they're doing it. And it is reasonable. It's absolutely reasonable. So you can switch from digital nomad or other purposes to a work permit or a blue card or family reunification with a Croatian citizen or an EU citizen, but you can't switch between digital nomad and other purposes anymore once they actually change the law. So this is a proposal, and we just had elections. So all that stuff has to settle down, and then they're most likely going to come and approve this or pass the changes to the law on foreigners. So those are big changes that are to be expected. So I just wanted to kind of dig into that because it's kind of earth-shattering. I mean, I know of quite a few people who've been in Croatia for 3-4 years based on doing that, and they won't have that option anymore. So my guess is that there are going to be quite a chunk of people who are going to have to leave Croatia because they won't have another option to extend their stay. So food for thought. If that's something that affects you and you need to figure out another game plan, please let us know. Send us a DM. Cam will be on the other end of that, and we'll try and find out a solution for you. Everybody's situation is different. All right. Are you ready for the questions now? Yeah, I know you're on the edge of your seat. Okay, so this first one comes from Tony on Instagram. What are the mandated vaccines required for children to attend public school, if any? Yes, there are. So children must get mandatory vaccinations for tuberculosis, hepatitis B, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. I have never heard that word before. Polio, diseases caused by Haemophilus, influenza type B, measles, rubella, and mumps. We do have a post about this that reiterates what is mandatory, also the information on where you get vaccinations in Croatia. So if you would like that, send us a DM. We've got a question. Is the new government with immigrants or against immigrants? What do you think about it? Oh, well, I think that Croatia's been pretty consistent on who they want to come into the country and who they don't want to come into the country. And the way that I track this is based on laws. That's how because look, politicians and people and news outlets are going to say lots of stuff to get attention, to stir up stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to the actual laws that are passed that, to me, convey what the country's motivations are. So, case in point, they radically overhauled the Citizenship Act in 2020 to open up citizenship for more people with Croatian heritage. So they removed the limit, the number of generations back you could go. They removed the requirement to take the language and culture test because there's a whole hell of a lot of people with Croatian heritage who live around the world who do not speak Croatian. So that was holding a lot of people back. And their intention with that is, if we give them passports, they will come live in Croatia. Now, I think that's true for some people, but I don't think that's true for most people. But that was an incentive, okay? Now, as far as third country nationals are concerned, I am a third country national. Through their immigration laws, it is very clear that they want us to come here for a year and then get out. That's also obvious by this digital nomad loophole that is being curbed. Now, that being said, what the third country nationals that they do want coming into Croatia are the ones that can work, that can fill these roles that they cannot otherwise fill. Croatia has a huge labor shortage, and this is caused by a variety of things. One is a lot of Croatians, especially young Croatians, have left Croatia to move abroad. UK, US, Germany, Ireland, etc. Okay? So because of that, you don't have this young workforce of people who would be taking kind of entry-level jobs or labor jobs or service jobs. And that's a big problem because we still need people to do those things. So they, over the last few years, have continued to open up the law and try and streamline the process as best as they know how so that we can bring in more of those foreign workers to fill those roles. And it seems like with the latest kind of round of changes, they're also trying to do a better job of protecting them. Now, we'll see how these things get implemented. I could tell by reading the proposed law about the changes to regulate workers that it feels a little bipolar. Like, on the one hand, it looks like they are trying to streamline the process, but you can tell there's just like a little bit of a conservatism there. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, but we can't make it too easy. And I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs, who are in service, who own restaurants and cafes, and, they are in dire straits trying to hire because one friend of mine, he pays very well. Minimum I think he pays at his restaurant is 2,000 net euros per month, but I know that he has people that go up higher than that. And when he just put out his applications on Moje Pasao for the new season, not a single Croatian applied. Now I know I'm sorry to go off on a tangent here a little bit. I know that there are suggestions that there are no jobs in Croatia or there are no well-paid jobs in Croatia, and that is just not true. Are they spilling over? No, but they exist. They absolutely exist. I know when I was doing, when I was looking for my first employee, and I published on Moje Pasao, I didn't get a single application in Split, like none. And there's a few different factors. Again, it's not just people leaving Croatia. It's also on the coast. You have all these families that have this wealth of property that they're renting out as accommodation. And if you're in a family like that, why would you work? You probably live at home you don't have to work. Maybe you just need enough money for cigarettes and coffee and that's it. Like, why would you go and be a server at a cafe bar or ride a bike around for Wolt when your family has plenty of money and you're just gonna inherit these accommodations one day? I mean, I get the rationale, but as a result of that, we have this huge gap in the market that needs to be filled. And if Croatians are not going to take those jobs, they're going to have to be taken by foreigners. And so Croatia, new government, old government, I don't know that it really matters. They still have the exact same problem, which is Croatia has a huge labor shortage. And Croatia is not an isolated incident. The entire world now is starting to compete for labor. And so Croatia's competing with other countries as well, you know, and there are salaries that are high. There are salaries that offer a living wage, but it is really hard for businesses to offer that. And I speak as a business owner, it's tough because the contributions on salaries range from 40 to 60%. So the more that you pay a person, the higher those contributions are. So you can essentially double the cost of a salary because of the pension, the healthcare, and the taxes that you have to pay on top of it. So I know I went kind of like off on a bit of a tangent, but I hope I answered your question. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming months and also the next couple of years as Croatia takes shape, because Croatians are still leaving. Now, what I would like to see, now that we can transition to what I hope we will see, is I would really like to see a government in Croatia that starts to incentivize entrepreneurship more, because I've heard a lot of Croatians who have said that Croatia is not a country of entrepreneurs, and I disagree. Maybe you don't use that nomenclature, but Croatia is full of entrepreneurs. The baba down at the tržnica with a pile of carrots, she works for herself, you know? She may not have employees, she may not have a registered business, but she is still self-employed. And there are so many opportunities in this country, so many. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who has lived here for almost 10 years, and she has her own business, and we were sitting there talking about what businesses we could do together, and we named like 3 or 4 that we would like to explore. But there are lots of opportunities here for someone who wants to start a business. And I would really encourage Croatians to do that, to explore that, because there are opportunities. There are. So if you want to stay in Croatia because you love Croatia, your family's here, it's safe, you know, the air is clean, the water is clean, you love being by the sea in the summer, you know, if you like the quality of life that you have in Croatia, but you don't feel like you have the opportunities, one way is you can create those opportunities for yourself. And I've met a lot of Croatians who moved abroad and then they were like, you know what, I miss Croatia, and they came back. And that is something that does happen. So there is a specialness here. I don't want to say that everything is just rosy and perfect, because it isn't. It isn't. There's lots of struggles. I get headaches on a monthly basis. You know, entrepreneurship is hard. Ambition is hard, but there are opportunities for the governments to make it a little bit easier to open a business, to maintain a business. You know, I would love to see that for the first year you have some kind of serious tax break. I would love to see for the first year you don't actually have to hire yourself and pay yourself a salary as the owner. It's insane to me that when you open up a company, you immediately have to start paying yourself, and at a minimum wage, which is not cheap. I mean, it's like 1,500 euros, I think, with the contributions at a bare minimum for the director. So there's lots of things that could be done to inspire entrepreneurship. And by inspiring entrepreneurship and incentivizing it, you know, you could end up having more Croatians stay here instead of making the decision to go abroad. So that was a long tangent. I love tangents. I hope I answered your question. But I would love to know what everyone who voted thinks and if they're happy with the outcome of all of that. Oh, hey, Logan. Nice to see ya. Okay. Oops, what am I doing? I think I'm like putting in emojis. All right. Oh, good gracious. All right. All right, I'm going to move on to our next question. So the next one comes from Starry Dido, aka Michael, on YouTube. I'm 67, retired dual citizen, living in Šibenik since last week, and I want to watch American TV sports channels. Which streaming service should I purchase, and will I need a VPN? What's the procedure, please? So I did not know the answer to this question because I do not watch sports. But I have a very good friend who used to live here in Croatia. He's from Sarajevo. He's in Sarajevo now. And he also lived in the States for 20 years, and he's a big sports fan. He watches all of them, but mostly basketball, but all of them. So this is from him. So thank you to Samir out there who gave me these answers. You have several options, okay? Local cable sports channels emit a lot of American sports with a subscription. They usually have different packages, so you can go directly to the source. There are also subscriptions to American sports channels like NFL.com, NBA.com, ESPN.com, and more like blocks of channels. So you can watch games through those like anywhere in the world. And then this third one is what he does, which is very classic for him. So he watches sports on free. Let me try that again. He watches them on Facebook for free. So what he says is that there are people who will pirate sports events and air them on Facebook. And so he will just search on Facebook for the game he's looking for, and he'll just go and find one, and then Facebook tries to go and shut them down, and so then you have to go and find another one. So he doesn't use VPNs for any of this stuff. If you pay for a subscription, you're allowed to watch it anywhere, and if you're on Facebook, then it's not a matter of VPN. It's just a matter of whether or not Facebook gets to it. But what he says is that Facebook just can't possibly get to all of the people who are pirating stuff, so it's about how much patience you have, you know? But those are the options. So thank you so much to Samir for helping me with that answer, and thank you to Michael for asking it. Okay, this next one comes from one of our longtime fans whose handle I absolutely love, Craigerpotamus, here on Instagram. I'm considering purchasing a moderately expensive item during a visit to Croatia this summer, and because we are talking about a refund of a couple of $100s, I'm just wondering about how the VAT refund process works. As I understand, this needs to be done upon exit from the EU, but what if I'm exiting the EU from another country that's not Croatia? Is there a way to submit documentation by mail or online if I'm unable to reach a customs officer? Great question. Have not gotten this one on the 5 Question Friday before, so let me go ahead and dig into that. So first, I want to give you some context of what he's talking about. If you are a tourist in the EU, meaning you do not hold residence in the EU, then you can get a refund on certain purchases of the VAT, the value added tax, which is kind of like a sales tax that is added to most purchases. Croatia has one of the highest VAT tax rates in the European Union. It's 25%. Whew, it hurts sometimes. So if you want to get a refund, there's a few things that you need to do. So first, at the time of the purchase, you need to make sure that the shop offers VAT tax refund. Like I said, not all purchases qualify, not all shops offer it. Usually there's a sticker in the window that says VAT tax-free shopping, but you can also just ask the person at the cashier at the shop. Okay, so you need to tell them that you want a VAT refund, and you have to give them your passport. So have your passport on you, because then they have to prepare the tax-free form for you. Okay, so after that, when you go to the airport, and this is going to be your airport which you are exiting the EU. So that may be in Croatia, that may be France, that may be Germany, wherever it is, it does not matter. Whatever your last port in the EU is before you leave the port, that is where you need to go to the customs desk This is before security, okay? And you must present your unused purchase, okay? Your receipt of purchase and the VAT paperwork along with your passport. So, to be abundantly clear, you present and stamp the documents only at the last stop when exiting the EU, regardless of where you made your purchases. We do have a guide on this, and it goes into greater detail on how you can request a VAT tax refund. So if you'd like that, send us a DM. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you to Krager Potamus. Oh. Alexis! Oh, hi! I've been thinking about you, and I was wondering about coming down to Solano to see you. I'm going to send you a message. Thanks for being here. Okay, let me scroll back down. Got lots of people joining today. Okay, all right, so this brings us to our lawyer tip of the week. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so, this is a good one. Keep all of your government-issued documents and correspondence in a binder. Whenever you visit a government office, take the entire binder with you, even if you think you won't need it, okay? You never know what the government is going to ask for. Save yourself a second trip and just bring it all with you every single time. I could not agree more. In fact, do I have mine handy? Yes, I do. This is my binder. So I've had this binder since the very beginning. This is 12 years old, and it has all of my stuff, all my company registration stuff. It has all of my temporary residence documents. It has my property certificate, my OIB, like all of the stuff the government has given me, it is in this binder. So whenever I need to go do something, I take it with me. Because like I said, you just never know what they're going to need. And it's just not worth having to go back home for that one more piece of paper. So be sure to keep everything together. And just on an extra note, Croatia loves binders. They just love them so much. I don't really like binders. I feel that they're messy. And how can you separate things into categories efficiently? But that's the system that they use here. Like, see down there below? Can I point? See those? Those are the books for my company. They're in binders. That is what my accountant prepared. That's what they do here. And I just let it happen. All right, let's go to our fourth question. This comes from Lucia here on Instagram. I would like to know if it is possible to work as a tourist guide on the coast without knowing the language perfectly, but speaking other foreign languages. Do you need to go through some kind of test to get a license or similar? I speak English and Spanish. Great question. So to become a tour guide in Croatia, you do need a license. That's important. Knowing different languages is very helpful, and you can do tours in other languages. You're not required to do it in Croatian. But there are requirements that you must consider. So tour guide services in Croatia can only be offered by those who hold a tour guide license and are Croatian nationals, nationals of EEA and Swiss Confederation, third country nationals with permanent address in Croatia, or third country nationals who live in other countries with which Croatia has an agreement. So sometimes there are tour guides from other countries that are accompanying tour groups, and so they're able to get a special permit to be a tour guide here in Croatia, even though they do not live in Croatia. So that's what that last one is suggesting, okay? So to become a tour guide in Croatia, you must take a course and pass an exam. You have to get confirmation of course completion and request an official decision, and you have to get your tourist guide card. Now, the test and the course are going to be in Croatian, so it's important to understand that. Foreign tour guides who do not live in Croatia must obtain approval for tour guide services from the Ministry of Tourism. For approval to be granted, the person must have a tour guide license that is valid for use within the territory of the EU. We do actually have a guide all about this, about how to become a tour guide, how to have a tourist agency. So if you would like that, it's actually quite lengthy. We went into a lot of detail. Send us a DM, we'll send it over to you. All right, this is our last question for today. Ava, on the 5 Question Friday forum, is there such a thing as part-year residence in order to spend the warm months in Croatia and the rest of the year in one's country of origin during retirement? How common is it for foreigners or those with dual citizenship to retire in Croatia? Okay. There's a few pieces to this, okay? So first, let's talk about people who have dual citizenship, because that's the easiest one. Then we'll move into the second part. So people who hold dual citizenship that don't want to live in Croatia full time, yes, it's very common for them to come here during the summer, usually for 3 to 6 months, and then they go back to wherever it is that they're living. And they can do that. They do have to register their address. That's important. If you would like to know how to do that, send us a DM. We'll send that guide to you. Now, let's say that you are not a citizen, okay? So you are an EU citizen, for example. If you want to come here for more than 90 days during the summer, you will have to register. It's not that big of a deal, but there is some paperwork involved. We do have a guide on that, so send us a DM. We will send it to you. Now, the most complicated scenario is if you are a third country national. Now, Croatia does not have a retirement permit. Kind of wish it did. Doesn't. We back-channeled with Parliament about this once, and they were like, no, because we want to make sure that we don't have a bunch of foreigners coming in, buying up the property and increasing property prices. And I'm like, that ship has sailed, guys. I mean, it's not just foreigners to blame for that. I mean, there are a variety of reasons why Croatia's property prices are out of hand now, but we cannot put it at the doorstep of retirees solely. So, but it does not have a retirement permit. Croatia doesn't want that, and so they do not have that. Now, if you want to come here for just a few months during the summer, then you can come for 90 days or less. You can absolutely do that. If you want to be here for more than 90 days, then you have to apply for residence. Now, let's say that you just want to be here for 5 or 6 months. You could apply for residence, but I'm telling you right now, you will not be approved for residence by the time you leave. So you could just use it as a way to kick the can down the road. You know, you apply for residence, and after 5 months or 6 months or however long it is you want to be here for the summer, you just leave. I mean, I would let them know. Don't just leave an open application, like go to MUP and say, hey, we decided not to stay anymore. Can you cancel the application? You can do that. That's a way to kind of work the system. I just ask that you definitely tell MUP when you leave, cancel the application. It's not fair to use their resources to continue processing an application for someone who's no longer in the country. So it's kind of a bit of a hack, but it's possible. I mean, a lot of people don't really want to do that because you do have to get a background check. There are documents that you have to provide. There are processes you have to go through, and some people just don't want to go through that much work. So there's a few different things that you can do. Step trendy, am I? I have never been called trendy before in my life, but thank you for the compliment. Okay, let me see if I mentioned anything else. Oh yeah, we have lots of guides we can send you on this front. So I already mentioned address registration for Croats, registration for residents for EU nationals. We have a post on how to retire in Croatia and also what retirees are seeking in Croatia. So if you would like any of that stuff, then we can send it over to you. Or just send us a DM and say, Cam, tell me about retirement. And she will tell you everything that she can. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being patient with me last week while I took a little bit of a break. But now I am here. I'm here. So I'll see you next Friday. And if you would like to see your question answered on an episode in the future, send us a DM, drop a comment after this replay is posted, and you might see it answered here in the future. So, another question from Moreno. What do you think Croatia will look like in 5 to 10 years? Of course, you asked me a question like that at the end. That's going to allow me to ramble for a little while longer. You know, I was thinking a little bit about this over the weekend because I was reading an article about how upset the people in Barcelona are because they feel that their city has turned into an amusement park for tourists. and nobody can afford to live there anymore. And I couldn't help but draw some parallels to Split. Now, I know you asked about Croatia, but this is just me dipping my toe in the water. I think that Croatia has a decision to make, and it needs to make it soon on a few different fronts. One is how they want to handle tourism going forward, because right now it feels like there's a focus on short-term gain rather than long-term prosperity, and it's hurting the country. It's hurting the country. Locals cannot afford to live here. Locals can't enjoy their own cities. Everything is about tourism, and that's really unfortunate. And the other downside to that is that Croatia is a bit of a one-trick pony because of tourism. Everything's about tourism. That's the major industry. There's no other industry that remotely comes close. But Croatia does have lots of opportunity to diversify and create new industries that can either be equivalent to the size of tourism or could overtake it. Tech is one of those things. I think Croatia has huge opportunities in tech. And there are tech communities that are surfacing. There are more tech companies that are opening in Croatia. So we're on that trajectory. But I think that the government could definitely do a lot to help inspire more tech companies to move to Croatia, to relocate to Croatia, because there's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of talent. And I think that's one of the sad parts, is that there's a lack of opportunities. So there are young Croatians who are leaving because they don't have the tech opportunities they need here in the country, and so they're leaving. I met a woman. I know we've interviewed her, but I don't know if the interview has actually been published yet. It might be this month or next month that it goes out. But I met a woman from Kastela, but when I was in CSAC at a conference. And she's into gaming, and she did a lot of self-teaching, and then she kind of got to a point where she was like, I don't want to leave Croatia, but I don't feel like I have the resources I need to be able to do what I love here. And then she found out about what they're doing up in Novska, near CSAC, maybe like 30, 40 kilometers from CSAC. They're building a big like tech gaming campus. They have workshops and courses and everything. So she went up there, and now she has her own business doing what she loves, and she's able to stay in Croatia. So I think if Croatia's open to making some big changes, I think Croatia could thrive. Another thing I think Croatia should do is I think that they should legalize marijuana, because if they did, Croatia could be the Kuwait of Europe, honestly. With the amount of sunshine that we have here, the amount of unused agricultural land that's being, laying dormant up in Slavonia, like, that is another thing that Croatia could do, and they could earn so much revenue on that could far surpass tourism. And look, I imagine there are a lot of locals who don't want this to turn into Amsterdam, and there are ways to do that, and you can put parameters around it so that that's something that you can prevent from happening. But I gotta say, all the drunk people we have down in here are a lot more dangerous than stoned people. So there are a number of things, and I talked earlier at the start of this episode about the incentives that could be brought for entrepreneurship. Now, if all those things are done, I think Croatia has a lot of opportunity, because if those things are done, then it would create more opportunities so that Croatians wouldn't leave. And I would like to see more of a focus here in Croatia on retaining citizens rather than creating new ones to replace the ones that left. That to me feels like something better to do, because then those new citizens, they'll come here and they'll stay. I think a lot of the new citizens that are being generated based on the changes from 2020, they're not coming here because they don't feel like they have opportunities here, or they're going to make a salary that is, a fraction of what they would make in Canada or the US or Australia or something. Of course, the cost of living is different, but Croatia has the power in its hands someone just has to do something with it. I do think Croatia is going to become more international. It already is. That cannot be avoided. I know that there's a lot of kind of calls to not have the huge influx of immigration that are doing these labor and service jobs. But guys, somebody's got to do the work. And there aren't Croatians there to do it. Foreigners have to do them. Or we just don't have restaurants. I mean, they have to make a decision on that front. So Croatia is going to be much more international for sure. And it could be an incredibly prosperous country. But big changes have to be made. And hard decisions have to be made. And I honestly don't think that they're that hard. But I do think we have a pretty tangled web of bureaucracy. And someone has to stand up and say, hey, we should make some changes. And then push those changes through. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm optimistic. I mean, I love Croatia. I love Croatia, warts and all, everything about it. And I plan to be here. I'm not leaving. I feel never say never, but no, I'm saying never. This is my home. So I'm going to stay here and do all I can in my power to support Croatia, to build my company, to be able to employ people in Croatia, give back whenever I can, volunteer whenever I can, fundraise whenever I can, and just generally speaking, take care of Croatia and give back to the country that allowed me to find my home. So it's not just up to politicians to make Croatia better. It's up to all of us who are part of the community. It's even up to tourists, because tourists don't have to come to Croatia and treat it like a toilet, you know? So all of us have to be in this together to build a bigger and better Croatia. But Croatia's not terrible right now, but it definitely has room for improvement. Everything does. It always does. Hope I answered your question. That's it. Any more questions? Anybody gonna catch me before I go? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Love spending this time with you guys every Friday. I will see you next Friday for another episode of 5 Question Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Vidimo se. Oops, didn't hit the button right. Bye-bye.